My name is Lin Xiaoran. After living a normal life, I buried my head in the file room of a small company every day to organize documents. I occasionally chatted with my colleagues about gossip and went home to play the show at night. Life was as dull as white as water. Until that morning, I received an inexplicable letter and my life was overwhelming. It was an ordinary Monday. I dragged my tired body into the company as usual. The desk was filled with documents to be sorted, and the computer screen was still hanging on the chat window that didn't close last night. I sat down and prepared to make a cup of coffee to refresh myself. The door of the office was pushed open. The guy who was sending the express delivery came in and shouted, "Lin Xiaoran, you have your letter." I was stunned for a moment, thinking who was still writing a letter this year. Is WeChat not good? But I still took the cowhide envelope, which was heavy and a little rough to the touch. There was no sender on it, only my name and company address, and the handwriting was sloppy like a primary school student. I opened it and saw a piece of paper inside, full of dense words, and a blurry black and white photo, which looked like a crime scene, with blood on the ground and a dim alley in the background. The content of the letter made me feel refreshed. He opened his head and wrote, "Lin Xiaoran, welcome to the game. If you are selected, you must find the truth in the prison of time. The murder case 10 years ago was still outside the law, and only you can find him. The failed price is forever trapped in today. Enjoy it, every 24 hours, you will come from the head." I thought this was whose malicious drama, but after all, the sarcastic language of the second-year-old was full of illness, such as a horror novel that was copied online. But when I looked down at the photo, I suddenly flashed some blurry memories in my brain, as if I had seen this alley, but I couldn't say it. I kneaded the letter into a group and threw it into the trash can, and felt nervous in my heart, and then continued to work. But strange things began to follow that day. That night, when I got home from get off work, I always felt that someone was following me on the way, and I didn't see anything after I came back several times. When I got home, I opened the door and my phone was over. It was a strange number. After picking up, the other party didn't say anything, only a low breathing sound, and it stopped directly after 10 seconds. My heart was so hilarious that I closed the door tightly, pulled up the window, and finally I watched several episodes of The Night before I could sleep hard. The next morning, I woke up to see the time. It was still Monday, at 6:30. I thought I had missed it, so I flipped through my phone, and the date has not changed, it was still yesterday. My heart skipped a beat and I opened my computer tightly. I found that I didn't see any documents I processed yesterday, and the chat records went back to yesterday morning. I thought the system was wrong, and it was restarted several times, but the result was still not changed. When I arrived at the company, I found that the documents on the table were exactly the same as yesterday, and even my colleagues said "It's so early, Kobayashi," when they entered the door. I started to panic, and my brain was filled with words from that letter, "Every 24 hours, you will come from the head." I pulled into the trash can and looked out. The words were still so sloppy and the content was not changed. I sat on the chair with the letter, my brain blank, thinking that if this was true, wouldn't I be trapped on the same day? On the first day of the cycle, I didn't have anything to do, just sat in the office and tried to figure out what was going on. Seeing that I was absent-minded, my colleagues thought I was absent-minded, so they came to comfort me. I reluctantly smiled and said that it was okay, but I just didn't sleep well. But in my heart, I began to wonder if I was crazy. At night, I received the strange phone call again, and I still had only breathing sounds. After I stopped, I turned off the machine and shrank it in the silence and did not dare to move. The third day is still Monday. I finally accepted the reality, I was really stuck in the time cycle. Every time I wake up, it's the same morning at 6:30, and the birds outside the window are exactly the same. Everyone in the company is repeating yesterday's action, saying that even the menus in the canteen at noon are changed. Only I remember what happened yesterday, and only I know that this day will come again. I decided not to sit and wait. Since the letter said that I wanted me to find the hands from 10 years ago, I had to start acting. I carefully put the letter and photos in hand and began to recall where the alley in the photos was. The memory in my brain is still very vague, but I remember that when I was a child, it seemed like I had passed by a similar place as my father. It should be in the old city area, and there was a broken red brick building on both sides of the alley, and there was always a stinking smell of sewers on the ground. I asked for a long time off and took the underground to the old town. After getting off the car, I walked through several hot streets and finally found an alley that suits my memory. There is a big house selling fruit at the entrance of the alley. I walked over and asked him, "The house, has something happened in this alley before? For example, a murder case?" Dawei glanced at me and said, "Young man, this alley has nothing to do for many years. There are many thieves on the top." "Who did you tell me?" I couldn't explain it, so I could only smile awkwardly and turn around and walk into the alley. It really looks very similar to the photo. There are several broken trash cans in the corner of the wall, and there is still no clean dirty water on the ground. But I turned around and found nothing, and there was no suspicious figure. When I returned to the company, I was almost off work. I sat at the table, staring at the letter in a daze, thinking that if this was a bad drama, it would be too much of a problem. But if it is not a bad drama, who is the person who wrote the letter? Why did he choose me? What does the murder case 10 years ago have to do with me? The more I thought about it, the more I became more and more irritated, so I simply called Zhou Jingxian. Jingxian was the dead party when I was in college. She is now a password student. Her brain is very useful and specializes in studying various encrypted information and decoding technologies. I told her about the past few days, including the time cycle and the letter. After hearing this, she was silent for a long time before opening her mouth. "After all, are you sure you are not dreaming? Time circulating this matter is too disgusting. I also hope it's a dream, but I've been repeating it for 3 days. Every day I wake up on the same morning. If you don't believe it, I'll call you tomorrow and see if you still remember this phone call today." I was a little anxious, but no one believed it after all. Jingxian sighed and said, "Okay, take the letter to me and I will help you analyze it. There's also that photo, too." I took the letter and photo and sent it to her via WeChat. After I finished it, I suddenly realized whether the time cycle would also reset the phone record. What if she doesn't remember this phone tomorrow and the photos will not be seen? Sure enough, when I woke up the 4th morning, the chat records on my phone were gone, and Jingshuan's WeChat was still in the same state as 3 days ago. My heart sank, but I still called her again with my head and told the matter again. She still had the half-believing and half-doubted spirit, but she still answered to help me see the letter and the photos. I spread the things again and prayed in my heart that there would be some progress this time. This day, I did not go to the old town, but stayed at the company and tried to search for information online. I used my mobile phone to check the keywords of the murder case 10 years ago and the alley in the old city area, but I couldn't find anything useful. There are only some scattered reports in the news file, saying that there are indeed several cases in the old town area, but none of them are described in detail, and they are not in line with the scene in the photos. After get off work, I went to the old town again. This time I changed the alley, but there was no harvest. When I got home, I was so tired that I was covered in the letter. "The failed price is always trapped in today." I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking that if I really kept repeating it, would I get crazy? On the 5th day, Jingxian took the initiative to call me, saying that she studied the words and photos on the letter and found some clues. After all, although the words on the letter are sloppy, some of the pens are regular, like deliberately hiding some information. There is a blurred logo in the background of the photo, like the logo of a certain organization, but I haven't found out what it is. Are you free tonight? Let's meet each other and have a chat in person. As soon as I heard that there was progress, Lima responded. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Jingxian and I met at a cafe. She held the tablet and pointed to the scan of the letter and said to me, "You look at these words. The duplicate part of the pen is actually a simple password. After unpacking it, it is a sequence of numbers, which may be an address or phone number. I have to study it again." I clicked and asked her, "Where is the photo? Can that magazine be found?" She glanced at her eyebrows and said, "The logo is too vague. I tried to enlarge it, but it didn't work well. Maybe I have to find professional equipment to restore it. But I think this logo is not like the logo of an ordinary company, but more like the symbol of a certain underground organization. You have to be careful and not run away. I felt a little nervous, thinking of the game and time slaughter mentioned in the letter, and I always felt that there was a bigger secret behind this incident. After chatting with Jingxian, I got home and my brain was still a mess. Lying on the bed, I suddenly remembered that a former colleague named Zhang Yifan in the company, who was quite introverted. I heard that I had lived in the old city before and didn't know what to do. When I woke up the 6th morning, the first thing I did was to call Jingxian, confirming that she still remembered yesterday's conversation. As a result, she answered the phone and said, "After all, I studied it again last night. That number sequence might be a qualitative coordinate pointing to a place near the old town. Do you have time to check it out today?" I was stunned for a moment, thinking that she actually remembered what happened yesterday. What's going on? Shouldn't the time cycle reset everyone's memory? But I didn't ask much, so I answered tightly and said that I would check the seat in the afternoon. After hanging up the phone, I began to wonder whether Jingxian was also affected by the cycle. Or is she not an ordinary person at all? But I didn't have time to think too much, so I took the letter and photos and headed straight to the old town. Based on the coordinates given by Jingxian, I found a deserted warehouse with a rock-shaped iron lock hanging at the door, and there was no ghost in the surroundings. My heart was covered with hair, but I still pushed the door with my head hard. The iron locked it, and the door squeaked and opened the bar. I looked out and saw that it was pitch black inside. Only a few lights came through the broken window, illuminating a pile of broken wooden boxes and iron racks. I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight, and walked in for a few steps, and then I heard a light sound coming from behind, like a footstep. I turned around suddenly, but I didn't see anything. My heart beat like a drumming. I shouted in a low voice, "Who is there?" The sound replied in the empty warehouse, but no one answered. I took a deep breath, told myself not to scare myself, and continued to walk. When I walked to the depths of the warehouse, I found an old iron box on the ground with a blurred mark engraved on it, exactly like the one in the background of the photo. I squatted down and tried to open the iron box, but the box was tightly locked and didn't react no matter how I did it. Just as I was about to give it up, my phone suddenly fell off. It was a strange number. I picked it up, but the other party still didn't say anything, only a deep breathing sound. This time, after the breathing paused for a few seconds, a sound of xiao came out. "Lin Xiaoran, you found this place. The game just started, don't be anxious, there are more surprises later." The phone shut down, my palms were covered in sweat, and my brain was filled with the saying "the game just started." I looked around, and there was still no one in the warehouse, but I always felt that my eyes were staring at me in the dark. I grabbed my cell phone and ran out of the warehouse quickly, heading towards the underground station without returning. When I got home, it was already dark. I sat on the sofa, staring at the letter, thinking to myself what was going on. Who is the person who wrote the letter? Why play this game? And what does that magazine mean? Will the underground organization that Jingxian said have something to do with this matter? I decided to go to Jingxian tomorrow and tell her what happened today to see if she could help me dig out more traces. At the same time, I also plan to contact Zhang Yifan and ask him if he knows the past in the old city. Although the time cycle is terrible, if I could make good use of every day, I would not be able to really find out that hand and break this dead prison. It was late at night, and I was lying on the bed, and my brain was still a mess. There was a voice coming out of the window, as if someone was talking in a whisper. I closed my eyes and told myself that I would continue to check whether I would come again tomorrow. The truth will always surface. When I woke up in the morning, it was still the familiar 6:30, and the birds outside the window were screaming as harsh as ever. I turned over and sat up, rubbed my eyes, and the date displayed on my phone screen was still the Monday that was about to die. I felt a little numb, but my brain still flashed the strange phone in the warehouse last night, and the game just started that the sound of Sandy voice said. I clenched my fists and told myself that I couldn't be scared, and there must be some progress today. I quickly finished washing up, grabbed my phone and the letter, and was ready to call Zhou Jingxian first. When the phone was connected, she was feeling a little tired in her voice. "So, what's going on? Come back again?" I was stunned for a moment, thinking that she really remembered what happened yesterday, which was so strange. Logically speaking, the time cycle should reset everyone's memory, but why can she remember it? I felt the doubt in my heart and said, "Yes, it's the same day again. Yesterday I found a scrap warehouse at the old town seat. There was an iron box inside, and the tag engraved on it looked exactly like the one in the background of the photo. Also, I received a call and someone said the game just started and heard a special person." Jingxian was silent for a few seconds, and then said, "Don't run around, the warehouse is too dangerous. I checked that magazine again last night and found that it might be related to a group called Time Skies. They are an underground group, specializing in the borders of time and memory. It sounds very mysterious, but there is not much information online, only some scattered news. You come here today, let's talk in person, and I'll show you the digital sequence." I replied in my head, and I was worried. Time gap? It's not a good thing to hear this name. Can't they be related to the time cycle? Or is it that the anonymous person who wrote the letter is their person? I didn't think much about it, so I hung up the phone and tidied up my clothes and left. When I arrived at the company, I asked for a long time off as usual. My colleagues still had the repeated sentences of "Good morning, Kobayashi." I asked a few sentences to pay, and my brain was full of iron boxes and telephones in the warehouse. While there was nothing wrong in the morning, I decided to contact Zhang Yifan first to see if he knew the past in the old city. Zhang Yifan is my former colleague. He left 2 years ago and heard that he now opens a small store and sells some second-hand electronic products. He is quite introverted and doesn't usually come with people, but there are rumors in the company that he has been in the old city when he was young and has seen a lot of miscellaneous things. I took out my phone, found his number, and hesitated for a while and then threw it over. The phone rang for a few times before it was connected, and his cold voice came to the other side. "Hey, who?" "It's me, Lin Xiaoran." I cleared my throat and tried to make the language natural. "Yifan, I haven't seen it for a long time. What's going on recently? Do you have time to chat with me?" He snorted and said, "If you have something to do, I'm busy." My heart sank, but I still said with a stern head, "Actually, I want to ask you something about the old town. Have you lived there before, and have you heard of any murders 10 years ago? Or have you ever seen a strange magazine, like a twisted hourglass?" The phone was silent, and the atmosphere suddenly became a little strange. After a few seconds, he said in a low voice, "Lin Xiaoran, why are you asking about these things? Please don't listen to things in the old city, it's not good for you. I'll give you my help, don't let me go in." After saying that, he called directly. I stared at the screen of my phone, my heart was getting wet. His reaction was too inconsistent, as if he knew something but did not say it on purpose. Could he have anything to do with that letter? Or, he also knows the people who will be there in the time period. The more I thought about it, the more I became more and more troubled. I decided to meet Jingxian in the afternoon and talk to her about this. Afternoon, I went directly to Jingxuan's office. She did research in a technology company and was in a high-end documentary building in the city center. The environment was so clean that it made people uncomfortable. When I went in, she was typing something in front of the computer. The table was filled with various documents and notes, as well as several printed scans of letters. "After all, here," she raised her head and pointed to the chair beside her. "Sit down, I just solved some of the digital sequences, which is indeed a static coordinate, but not the warehouse yesterday, but a more remote place, near the old town, near the abandoned industrial area. I doubt that this coordinate might be the location of the next line." I bowed and asked, "Where's the iron box in that warehouse? And that magazine, what exactly will the time gap you are talking about?" Jingxian sighed and pushed her tablet in front of me. There were some web page screenshots and a few blurry photos on the screen. There will be this organization in the time slot, and there are very little information online, only anonymous posts in some forums mentioned. They are studying the manipulation techniques of time and memory, and some say they can make people reset their memory and even change their past perceptions. It sounds like science fiction, but if your time cycle is real, they may really have this ability. I heard it and thought that if this group could really control the time, then I was trapped in the circle. Didn't they arrange it on purpose? Seeing that my face was wrong, Jingxian patted my shoulder and said, "Don't scare yourself, these are just guesses. The most important thing at the moment is to figure out where the next coordinate point is. Are you free this afternoon? Let's go and have a look together." I was slight, although my heart was still furry, but with Jingxian accompanying me, it was better than running around alone. So we cleaned up briefly and took the yard to the abandoned industrial area near the old city. When we arrived at the place, the sky had begun to darken, and the surrounding area was full of broken factories and steel sluice columns, and the air was filled with the smell of iron and oil. Based on the coordinates in Jingshuan's hand, we found a half-collapsed factory with a crooked sign hanging at the door, which read "No Entry." My heart was blowing, but I still followed Jingxian in. The light in the factory was very dark, with only a few rays of sunlight coming from the top of the whole house, and the ground was covered with gravel and scrapped mechanical parts. "Sure, look at that side." Jingxian suddenly grabbed me and pointed to a corner deep in the factory. With the flashlight of the phone, I saw an old iron cabinet there, with the cabinet half open, and there seemed to be a pile of documents stuffed inside. I walked over and tried to pull the cabinet. There were indeed a few yellow papers and some photos. Although they were blurry, they could be seen as experimental equipment and figures. I picked up a photo and looked carefully. There was another magazine with a twisted hourglass in the background, and my heart was tight. Jingxian came over and said in a low voice, "These files are like some kind of experiment record, which mentions time reset and memory interference, and there are several surrogate numbers, like the name of the experiment object. You look at this page, and write X17 trial, with a 78% success rate, and an unusual target memory retention. This is so similar to your situation." I felt my skin numb and thought, is it hard for me to be their actual experiment? But why don't I have any impression of it? Just as I was about to look through other documents, a sound of footsteps suddenly came outside the factory. Although it was very light, it was particularly obvious in that dead and silent environment. Jingxian and I looked at each other, tightly stuffed the documents into my backpack, turned off the flashlight, and squatted behind the iron cabinet. The sound of his footsteps was getting closer and closer, and it sounded like two people. One of them said in a low voice, "Is it sure it's this? Don't go there again." The other voice was lower, with a little impatient, "Don't miss it. It said that the target may have come here, and the document cannot be left to the outsiders." My heart was beating almost to pop out of my throat, and Jingxian grabbed my hand and signaled me not to make a sound. The sound of walking lingers in the factory for a while, and finally goes away. Jingxian and I waited for a few minutes, and then we made sure that there was no silence outside, so we dared to stand up and run outside the factory quickly. When I returned to the underground station, it was completely dark. Jingxian and I sat on the bench, panting, and my brain was full of what I had just heard. Jingxian said in a low voice, "After all, those people will definitely have something to do with the time period. The documents they said should be what we got. We have to be careful not to let people realize that we have come here." I clicked my head, took out the documents from my backpack, and prepared to study them with her. But just after turning on the first page, the phone was over, and it was the strange number again. I hesitated for a moment and still picked it up. On the other side was the sound of the sand, with a bit of ridiculous lingering voice, "Lin Xiaoran, you ran very fast. Have you found something? Don't be too early, the game is not over yet. Tomorrow, remember to see your old friend Zhang Yifan, who has something you want to know." The phone shut down, my palms were covered in sweat, and my brain was filled with the saying "the game is not over yet." Seeing that my face was wrong, Jingxian asked, "Who came? What did you say?" I told her the content of the phone and she browsed. "Zhang Yifan? Is that former colleague you contacted in the morning? Is he related to this?" "I don't know either, but he reacted strangely in the morning, as if he knew something but didn't want to say it. I gritted my teeth. I have to look for him tomorrow and ask him clearly. Jingxian pointed and said, "Okay, but don't go alone, I'll go with you. There are also these documents, I'll take them back to study tonight to see if I can dig out more threads. Be careful when you go back, don't be followed." I agreed. Although my heart was still a mess, I was always a little confident if I had Jingxian help. When I got home, it was almost midnight. I was lying on the bed, my brain was covered with documents from the factory and the phone number. Time will be reset, experimenting with the subject. These words are like a knife in my brain, making me unable to sleep at all. I woke up the next morning, and it was that Monday. The first thing I did was to call Jingxian and confirm that she still remembered what happened yesterday. Sure enough, as soon as she answered the phone, she said, "After all, I read the documents last night and found that there was an agent called X17, which might be the name of a test subject. Also, there are several locations in the documents, which may be their test base. I think Zhang Yifan might know these places." I felt nervous and thought to myself whether X17 would be me. But I didn't say it, just said, "Then let's go find Zhang Yifan today and ask what he knows." After hanging up the phone, I made an appointment with Jingxian to meet her company building at noon, and then went to Zhang Yifan's shop together. His store is on an inconspicuous street near the old city area. The store is not big, with a broken sign hanging from the door, writing Fangu Electronics. When Jingxian and I pushed the door in, he was lowering his head and practicing an old mobile phone. He raised his head and saw us, and his face changed. "Lin Xiaoran, why are you here again?" He looked at Jingxian with a clear impatience in his voice. "Have you brought someone?" I didn't leave, so I opened the mountain directly. "Yifan, I received a call last night. Someone asked me to come to you and said you know what I was looking for. How much do you know about the murder in the old city, the time of the time, and the Hourglass magazine?" His face became even harder to see. He put down the tool in his hand and said in a low voice, "I don't know what you are saying. Lin Xiaoran, I will punish you and don't care about things. There are some things that you can't touch." Jingxian suddenly interrupted, and her words were calm. "Mr. Zhang, we are not here to find trouble. We have some documents in our hands, which mention a group called Time Slots, and have the experience of resetting time. If you know something and tell us, it may be good for everyone." Zhang Yifan was silent, and a silk silence flashed in his eyes. After a long time, he said in a low voice, "Okay, I've definitely heard of the Time. They are not good people. The murder case in the old town 10 years ago was so hard that they could not get rid of them. But let's ask you, don't check it anymore. Their power is not something you can deal with." I was shocked and asked, "What's going on in that murder case? Who is the killing? Why did you choose me?" He shook his head and said, "I don't know who the hand is, nor why I came to you. I just know that people who have time can control their memory and time. Their experiments have hurt many people. If you continue to check, it will become the next test product." I wanted to ask again, so he stood up and said, "That's all I can say. You go, don't come to me again." After speaking, he turned around and walked into the small room behind the store, and closed with a slam. Jingxian and I looked at each other, and my heart was full of doubts. Time intervals, time control, experience. Although this information is fragmented, each of them makes me feel cool. Jingxian said in a low voice, "After all, he must have known more, but he doesn't want to say it. We have to change directions and continue to check the locations in those documents, so we can't find more traces." I clicked my head. Although I was still not at the bottom of my heart, at least I have a general direction now. Time breaks, this mysterious organization may be the key to unraveling the time cycle. I decided to find out the location in the document in the next few days. No matter how dangerous it is, I will find the truth. After leaving Zhang Yifan's shop, it was already dark. Jingxian and I made an appointment to continue researching the documents tomorrow and then go home. Walking on the road, I always felt that someone was following me, and I didn't see anything after I came back several times. When I got home, I locked the door and pulled up the window, and my heart was still full of ups and downs. Lying on the bed, I stared at the ceiling. My brain was full of what Zhang Yifan said. Time-breaking events, murder cases, testimonials. What does these things have to do with me? Is there an anonymous challenge letter? Did the person who wrote it want to help me or harm me? I closed my eyes and told myself that I would continue to check whether I would come again tomorrow. The truth will always get closer and closer to me. When I woke up in the morning, it was still the familiar 6:30, and the bird outside the window screamed like a bell. I turned over and sat up, rubbed my eyes, and the screen of my phone was still the dead Monday. Although I have become ill of this repetition, there is still a fire in my heart. What Zhang Yifan said yesterday is like a thorn in my brain. Time intervals, time control, experience. These words make me feel more and more uneasy the more I think about it. I took a deep breath and told myself that there must be a breakthrough today. No matter how difficult it is, I will dig out more truth. After washing up, the first thing I did was to call Zhou Jingxian. When the phone was connected, she was feeling a little tired. After all, I'm back again? I read the document again last night. One of the places mentioned here is right next to the old town area. It's not far from the industrial area yesterday. Maybe it's another real point of their experience. Let's go and have a look today. I was stunned for a moment, thinking that she still remembered what happened yesterday, which was too unfair. The time cycle should reset everyone's memory, but why can she remember it? But I didn't have time to think too much, so I answered tightly, "Okay, let's see you at noon. I'll go to the company to pay in the morning, and then go directly to find you." After hanging up the phone, I quickly packed up my things and left. When I arrived at the company, I still had those repeated words, "It's early, Xiaoran." I was just talking, my brain was filled with the locations in the documents and Zhang Yifan's warning. I was very slow in the morning, and I was absent-mindedly sorting out the documents, and my brain was filled with the time gap and the twisted hourglass mark. Finally, I waited until noon, and I asked for a leave and hurried to meet with Jing Xian. We met at a small restaurant near the old town, where she was already waiting, holding a tablet in her hand, and the screen was a map of the location mentioned in the file. She looked up at me, and her voice was a little anxious. After all, this location is a lost laboratory. No information was found online, but according to the description in the document, this place may be related to their time resetting experience. We have to be careful not to be discovered. I clicked my head. My heart was pounding, but I still walked to the place with her. The place is indeed remote, hidden behind a wasteland in the old city. It is surrounded by grass and old walls, looking far away like a forgotten ruin. When I got closer, I realized that this so-called experiment room was actually a half-collapsed bungalow with doors and windows that were extremely broken. There were some faded words left on the wall, and no entry. Jing Xian and I looked at each other and pushed open the door that was about to be snatched. The light inside was very dark, and there was a musty smell in the air, and the ground was covered with dust and broken glass. We took out our cell phone and turned on the flashlight and walked carefully. The room was not big, but it was filled with old equipment, some of which looked like medical equipment, some of which were useless at all, and there were a bunch of yellow papers scattered beside it. Look here. Jing Xian called me in a low voice, pointing to a shelf in the corner of the wall, with an old notebook on it, and the familiar hourglass logo engraved on the cover. My heart beat faster. I walked over and picked up the notebook. I looked through and saw that there were all handwritten records. The words were sloppy, but I could tell that they were some experiment data and observation diaries. I turned to a page and wrote, X17 trial. Time reset for the 47th time. The target memory remains stable, but the emotion fluctuates and requires further interference. I looked at the lines of words, and the back was turbulent, thinking that this X17 would not be me, right? Looking further down, there are several lines that mention the memory implantation is successful, but the goal has doubts about past events and needs to be strengthened. I sent the notebook to Jing Xian and said in a low voice, "Look at the above." No. X17, time reset, memory implantation. This is exactly the same as what I am now. Am I the person they have to experiment with? Jing Xian sniffed her eyebrows and flipped through several pages quickly, her face becoming increasingly difficult. At the moment, there is also a person who also mentioned here, the observer, which seems to be the core figure of the entire experiment. Also, the purpose of the experiment is not to simply study the time cycle, but to manipulate the behavior of a specific goal and create a perfect resetter. I don't know what they want to do with you, but you are definitely their goal. I felt panic in my heart, my brain was full of doubts. Why choose me? What is the relationship between me and time intervals? Just as I was about to look through the notebook again, a sound of footsteps suddenly came from outside. Although it was very light, it was particularly obvious in this dead and silent environment. Jing Xian and I turned off the flashlight tightly, squatted behind the iron rack, and didn't dare to come out. The sound of my footsteps was getting closer and closer. There was only one person. Then a low voice sounded, "Is it sure it was this? Don't tell me that I was running away again." I felt nervous. Why did this sound so familiar? Like one of the people I heard in the industrial area yesterday. After a few seconds, another voice came, not on the scene, but from the talker, with a little impatient feeling. "Don't waste your time." The observer said that the target might come here, and things should not be left to outsiders' hands, so he would be searched. Jing Xian and I looked at each other, and my heart was about to jump out. Observer? Is it the person who is mentioned in the notebook? They were indeed looking for something in our hands. I held the notebook tightly, my palms were covered in sweat, and my brain was flying quickly. How could I take off my body? The sound of walking wandered around the room for a while, and finally went away, as if the man hadn't discovered us. After the outside was no longer calm, Jing Xian and I dared to stand up and run to the door quickly. After leaving the laboratory, we didn't dare to stop. We ran along the wasteland until we ran into the alley in the old city area, and we dared to stop and take a breath. Jing Xian said in a low voice, "After all, these people must be in a short time. They know we are investigating. The observer in their mouths may be the envoy behind the scenes, or the anonymous person who wrote the letter." I clicked my head and felt a chaotic heart. Then what should we do next? Continue to check the location, or ask Zhang Yifan clearly? He must know something. Jing Xian hesitated for a moment and said, "Zhang Yifan may have a thread, but it is not easy to force him to say something. I think we have to figure out the identity of the observer first. The notebook mentions that he often appears in a place called Border Point, which may be their headquarters. I will study it tonight to see if I can find a specific location." I agreed, although I was still not at the bottom of my heart. At least there was a direction. When I got home, it was already dark. I locked the door, pulled up the window, sat on the sofa, flipping through the notebook, my mind full of words. No. X17 and the observer. Time cycle, memory implantation, what does these things have to do with me? The more I thought about it, the more I became more and more troubled, so I simply sent a message to Jing Xian to ask her if there was any new progress. She quickly replied to me, "Of course, I found that the border point may be an underground facility deep in the old city. The specific location is still unclear, but I found a way to contact me, which may be used internally during the time interval. We will try to contact you tomorrow, and we will not be able to get the point information." I looked at her news, and my heart was both nervous and looking forward to it. Tomorrow, you may be able to get closer to the truth. I lay on the bed, closed my eyes, and my brain was still a mess, but I felt that this game was about to reach orgasm. I woke up the next morning, and it was that Monday. The first thing I did was to call Jing Xian. She said as soon as she answered, "After all, I tried to contact that number last night." The other party didn't say anything useful, but mentioned that there would be a conference in the neighborhood tonight, which might be the gathering of the core members of the time-lapse meeting. We have to go and have to check it out, but be careful not to expose ourselves. I felt a tight heart and answered. I was absent-minded all day long, and my brain was full of neighboring points and meetings. At night, Jing Xian and I met in an alley deep in the old city. She had found the approximate location of the border, which was an underground parking lot, and the entrance was hidden behind a deserted warehouse just inside the alley. When we arrived at the place, it was completely dark and the surroundings were so quiet that people were getting hairy. Jing Xian took me to find the warehouse and opened a beamed iron door. Sure enough, she saw a staircase leading to the underground. A faint light shone out at the entrance of the staircase, and she could hear low voices. My heart beat hard, but I still walked down with Jing Xian with my head. The staircase was very long. It took about 2 minutes to reach the end. In front was a spacious underground space, like a deserted parking lot, surrounded by broken concrete walls, with several tables in the center, several figures sitting around, talking in a low voice. Jing Xian and I hid behind a pillar, holding our breath and listening. One of them was low and with a bit of majesty. The observer said that the trial of No. X17 was close to the end, the time cycle was stable, and the memory implantation was basically successful. As long as the final step is completed, the goal will be completely controlled. Another person interjected, with a little doubt in his voice, but his recent actions are too unusual, as if he was exploring something. If he found the truth, would it affect the plan? The first person sneered, no, the circulation is single, he will never come out. The observer has arranged the final challenge letter and sent it tonight, and he will reach the end tomorrow. I heard it and thought that the X17 they said must be me, so what is the final challenge letter? Just as I was about to listen to it, my phone suddenly shook. It was a message from Jing Xian, so, don't make a sound. There are too many people in them, so we have to withdraw first. I clicked my head and was about to retreat with her, but I accidentally stepped on a piece of gravel under my feet, making a sound that was particularly obvious in this empty space. The figure at the table suddenly turned around, and one of them snorted, "Who is there?" Jing Xian and I didn't dare to hesitate, so we turned around and ran to the stairs. There was a rapid sound of footsteps coming from behind, and it was obvious that they discovered us. We ran all the way, rushed out of the warehouse, and walked into the alley, and finally left the pursuit. When I stopped, Jing Xian and I were breathing, and my heart was filled with words that I had just heard. After all, the final challenge they say may be the key to breaking the circle. Jing Xian said in a low voice, but it may also be a trap that leads you to the hook. You have to be careful not to be driven away by them. I clicked my head and my heart was in a mess. When I got home, it was almost midnight. I was sitting on the sofa, my brain full of words such as last step and completely controlled. At this moment, a letter was suddenly stuffed into the door, or the familiar cowhide paper envelope. My heart beat faster, and I picked it up and opened it and saw that there was only one line of words inside, Lin Xiaoran, the game ends. Tomorrow, the central building of the old city area, come to see me at 12 o'clock in the middle of the night. Observer. When I looked at the lines of words, my palms were covered with sweat. Is this the final challenge letter they said? Are the observers finally showing up? I have countless thoughts in my brain. Should I go or not? Will it be a trap if you go? Will you miss the only opportunity if you don't go? I hesitated for a long time, and finally decided that I would go tomorrow. No matter what the result is, I have to face it. The next night, Jing Xian and I made an appointment to go to the central building of the old city area together. At 11:30 midnight, we arrived at the place. There was no one above the square, only a few dim road lights shining, and the surroundings were so quiet that people were getting hairy. Jing Xian said in a low voice, so, no matter what happens when you wait, don't be moved. We have to figure out the other party's purpose first. I clicked my head, but my heart was so tight. Time passed minute by minute, and finally it was 12 o'clock in the middle of the night. A figure walked across the square, wearing a long black dress and a mask on his face, and couldn't see his long appearance clearly. He stopped a little over 10 meters away from us and said in a low voice, Lin Xiaoran, you are here. The game ends here. I felt nervous and asked, are you an observer? Did you do the time cycle? Why did you choose me? He laughed softly, the sound of the sound was the one in the phone, because you are the perfect test. The murder 10 years ago, you were the only target, but your memory was blocked. We need to wake it up and control it. You think you are looking for the truth, and in fact every step is in our plan. I heard a buzzing sound from my brain. Is I an eyebrow killing 10 years ago? But why don't I have any impression of it? Just as he was about to ask again, he suddenly took out a gun from his clothes and said to me, "A last step, hand over your memory, or stay in the circle forever." My heart was about to stop beating, and Jing Xian suddenly grabbed me and said in a low voice, "Of course, don't trust him, he is forcing you to hand over control. The breaking of the time cycle is on yourself." I remember the scene you saw 10 years ago. Some blurry pictures suddenly flashed in my brain, the dim alley, the blood, a twisted hourglass magazine, and a woman's face. I suddenly remembered that the face seemed to be Li Manting, my psychological doctor. Hasn't she been helping me to vent pressure? Can't she be the one who will be in a time slot? I looked up at the observer and gritted my teeth and said, "I remember that the hand I saw 10 years ago was completely different from yours. You are not a real observer, you are just a substitute, right?" He was stunned for a moment, then sneered, "It's smart, but it's too late." He said. He pulled the trigger, but at this moment, Jing Xian suddenly rushed over and pushed me open. Zibo brushed my shoulders and hurt bitterly. "Sure, run!" Jing Xian shouted, and I gritted my teeth and pulled her, turning around and running outside the square. There was a sound of footsteps coming from behind, but we didn't dare to turn around. We ran all the way, diamond into the alley, and finally left the pursuit. When I stopped, Jing Xian and I were breathing, and the wound on my shoulders was still bleeding, but my brain was covered with just a few pictures. I said in a low voice, "Xingxuan, I remember that the opponent 10 years ago was Li Manting. She was the person from the time of time, and may be the real observer. This person is just a substitute, and the real master behind the scenes has not yet appeared." Jing Xian pointed her head and her face turned pale. "Then we have to find Li Manting and ask everything clearly. But you have to deal with the wound first, and don't force it." I clicked my head and a fire ignited in my heart. Time cycles, memory implants, the truth from 10 years ago, everything started to string together. Although I can't fully reveal the truth tonight, I know that it's no longer far from the truth. Next, no matter how dangerous it is, I will find Li Manting, break this cycle of death, and end the game in the end.